Welcome to another episode of Tech Tips. Today's episode is entitled 5 Tips on Changing a Tire. Now before we begin, there is a small disclaimer. I am not a professional. This is purely based on my experience and is just reflective of my opinions. Okay, let's begin. Tip number 1. Okay, check the condition of your spare tire and equipment. Of course, you have to make sure you know where your equipment is located. Most mid-size and compact cars, the tire, the jack, and the wrench are all located in the trunk under the floorboard. So if you lift up that little cardboard and carpet, you will find the tire and the other equipment there. So you need to remove it, make sure that they are in working order, especially the tire. You need to check to make sure that it is not flat. Okay, a quick way to check this is to put your tire vertically on the ground and sit on it. If it's flat, obviously there's not enough air in there. If it can support your weight, it should be adequate to get you to your local tire center to get a new tire. Okay, that's tip number 1. Okay, tip number 2, make sure your car is on a level area. Okay, also it says here with no or minimum traffic. I'll get to that point. You want to make sure that you are changing your car on a level surface or street. You do not want any inclines of any sort because it will cause it to become very difficult or nearly impossible to change without putting you or your car in harm or danger or causing it to tip over. Okay, if you look at your typical jack that's located or provided again in your mid-size to compact cars, they are very small. They have a very small footprint. They also have a very small contact point that actually lifts your car. So it's very, very easy to tip over. Okay, now also the second part, no or minimum traffic. You do not want to change your tire in a place where cars are whizzing right by you. The sheer fact that they're zipping by you will cause your car to rumble and shake, and will also cause the ground to rumble and shake depending on the size of car that is passing by you. So be very, very careful. Also, if you happen to have a flat tire on the freeway, and the freeway obviously has a lot of cars, and depending on the time of day this happens, if it happens to happen at night, you want to be extra careful. You want to make sure you put out some flares or something to make sure that people can see you. Okay, that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, loosen the bolts before you jack up your car. Now what I mean by this is to make sure that these bolts are loosened where you can actually hand remove them with, of course, your wrench when the car is jacked up. These are on usually pretty tight, so they require quite a bit of force to loosen them. Now if you look at the picture there, you'll see the wrench on a bolt and you see someone's foot on the wrench. That's like a little trick I learned, and I think it's not necessarily a trick. It's something that I think a lot of people who've changed tires before are aware of. It's a way to get the bolt loosened. They're on pretty tight. You just need to turn it just like a few millimeters in order to loosen it. So using your foot obviously would be a lot more powerful than trying to use your arm. But in either case, once you've loosened them, do not remove the bolt. Leave them on. Then jack up your car, then loosen and remove the bolts. Okay? That's tip number 3. Tip number 4. Keep track of your bolts and the tire is very heavy. Well, there are actually 2 things. First of all, when you do remove the bolts to change your tire, make sure that you keep the bolts together and in a safe place. You don't want them rolling away from you. You don't want them falling into a hole. You don't want to forget where you put them, because once you put your spare tire on and you start bolting it back on, you're gonna go, hey, where are my bolts? If you're missing a bolt or more than one bolt, it actually is dangerous. Okay, and later on, if you need to replace the bolts, it'll cost you money. Okay, so make sure you know where they are. Okay. Also, the tire is very heavy, meaning some tires, depending again on the kind of car you drive, will be substantially heavy for an average person of average height and strength. So be cautious, don't throw out your back. Okay, on to tip number 5, our final tip. They call it a spare tire for a reason. So once you have your spare tire on, avoid going on the freeway. This is my recommendation and my opinion only. Okay, because on the freeway you're gonna have to go at a pretty high speed and it might require you to maneuver the car around. Now try to stay on the streets and also avoid driving long distances. Don't put on a spare tire and decide, hey, I wanna drive to the beach, or I want to drive to my friend's house who lives an hour away or 30-40 miles away. This is highly dangerous. It's not recommended. Okay, and as soon as you have the chance or opportunity, drive your car to the nearest tire center and get a new tire. Okay, those are my 5 tips. I hope they helped. Thanks for watching. And please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again. Have a good one. Bye.